The first was that they should be true to the king and to the Lord that they owe, and that they should love well together and be true each one to other, that they should call each other his fellow or else brother, and not by servant, nor his knave, nor none other foul name, and that they should deserve their pay of the Lord or of the master that they serve, and that they should ordain the wisest of them to be master of the work, and neither for love nor great lineage, nay riches, nay for no favor, to let another that hath little conning for to be master of the Lord's work, wherethrough the Lord should be evil served, and they ashamed. And also that they should call their governors of the work master in the time that they work with him, and other many more charges that long to tell. And to all these charges he made them to swear a great oath that men used in that time, and ordained them for reasonable wages, that they might live honestly by, and also that they should come and assemble together every year once, how they might work best to serve the Lord for his profit and to their own worship, and to correct within themselves him that had trespassed against the science. And thus was the science grounded there, and that worthy Mr. Euclid gave it the name of geometry. And now it is called, through all this land, Masonry. Scythen long after, footnote, since then long after that time, when the children of Israel were coming into the land of Behest, footnote, the land of promise, or the promised land, Behest promisio, says the Promptorium Parvolorum, that is now called amongst us the country of Rome. King David began the temple that they called Templum Ni, and it is named with us the Temple of Jerusalem. And the same King David loved masons well, and cherished them much, and gave them good pay. And he gave the charges and the manners as he had learned of Egypt given by Euclid, and other charges more that ye shall hear afterward. And after the decease of King David, Solomon, that was David's son, performed out the temple that his father begun, and sent after masons into divers countries and of diverse lands, and gathered them together, so that he had 80,000 workers of stone, and were all named masons. And he chose out of them 3,000 that were ordained to be masters and governors of his work. And furthermore, there was a king of another region that men called Hiram. Footnote. It is scarcely necessary to explain that this is meant for Hiram. And he loved well King Solomon, and he gave him timber to his work. And he had a son that hight Anan. Footnote. The true origin and meaning of this name, for which some of the modern speculative masons have substituted Hiram Abiff and others Adoniram, will be hereafter discussed. And he was a master of geometry, and was chief master of all his masons, and was master of all his gravings and carving, and of all manner of masonry that longed to the temple. And this is witnessed by the Bible in Libro Regum, the 3rd chapter. And this Solomon confirmed both charges and the manners that his father had given to masons. And thus was that worthy science of masonry confirmed in the country of Jerusalem, and in many other kingdoms. Curious craftsmen walked about full wide into divers countries, some because of learning more craft and cunning, and some to teach them that had but little cunning. And so it befell that there was one curious mason that hight Mamus Grecus. Footnote. This name has been a Sphinxian enigma which many a Masonic Oedipus has failed to solve. I shall recur to it in a subsequent page. That had been at the making of Solomon's temple, and he came into France, and there he taught the science of masonry to men of France. And there was one, the regal line of France, that hight Charles Martel. Footnote. The introduction of this monarch into the legend leads us to an inquiry into an interesting period of French Masonic history that will be hereafter discussed. And he was a man that loved well such a science, and drew to this Mamus Grecus, that is above said, and learned of him the science, and took upon him the charges and manners, and afterwards by the grace of God he was elect to be king of France. And when he was in his estate, he took masons, and did help to make men masons that were none, and set them to work, and gave them both the charge and the manners and good pay, as he had learned of other masons, and confirmed them a charter from year to year to hold their semble when they would, and cherished them right much, and thus came this science into France. England in all this season stood void, as for any charge of masonry, unto St. Albans. Footnote. St. Alban, the proto-martyr of England. Of his connection with the legend, more hereafter. Time. And in his days, the king of England, that was a pagan, he did wall the town about, that is called St. Albans. And St. Albans was a worthy knight and steward with the king of his household, and had governance of the realm, and also of the making of the town walls, and loved well masons, and cherished them much. And he made their pay right, good, standing as the realm did, for he gave them IJS, VJD a week, and IIJD to their nuncinques. Footnote. A corruption of the Old English word nuncheon, from which comes our modern luncheon. It meant the refreshment taken at noon. Laborers desist from work to shun the heat. It may here mean food or subsistence in general. St. Alban gave his masons 2 shillings a week and 3 pence for their daily food. See Nuncinques in Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. And before that time, through all this land, a mason took but a penny a day and his meat, till St. Albans amended it and gave them a charter of the king and his council, or to hold a general council, and gave it the name of assembly. And thereat he was himself, and helped to make masons, and gave them charges, as you shall hear afterward. Right soon after the decease of St. Alban, there came diverse wars into the realm of England of diverse nations, so that the good rule of masonry was destroyed unto the time of King Athelstan's days, that was a worthy king of England, and brought this land into good rest and peace, and builded many great works of abbeys and towers, and other many diverse buildings, and loved well masons. And he had a son that hight Edwin, and he loved masons much more than his father did. And he was a great practiser in geometry, and he drew him much to talk and to commune with masons, and to learn of them science, and afterwards for love that he had to masons, and to the science he was made mason, and he got of the king his father a charter and commission to hold every year once an assembly where that ever they would within the realm of England, and to correct within themselves defaults and trespasses that were done within the science. And he held himself an assembly at York. Footnote. This part of the legend, which refers to Prince Edwin and the assembly at York, is so important that it demands and will receive a future comprehensive examination. And these he made masons, and gave them charges, and taught them the manners, and commanded that rule to be kept ever after, and took then the charter and commission to keep, and made ordinance that it should be renewed from king to king. And when the assembly was gathered, he made a cry, that all old masons and young that had any writing or understanding of the charges and the manners that were made before in this land or in any other, that they should show them forth. And when it was proved, there were founden some in French, and some in Greek, and some in English, and some in other languages, and the intent of them all was founden all one. And he did make a book thereof, and how the science was founded. And he himself bade and commanded that it should be read, told, when that any mason should be made for to give him his charge. And from that day into this time, manners of masons have been kept in that form, as well as men might govern it. And furthermore, diverse assemblies have been put and ordained certain charges by the best advice of masters and fellows. Then follow the charges that are thus said to have been enacted at York and at other general assemblies, but which properly constitute no part of the legend, at least no part connected with the legendary details of the rise and progress of the institution. The legend ends with the account of the holding of an assembly at York and other subsequent ones for the purpose of enacting laws for the government of the order.